Let's look back at the year 2000. PlayStation 2 and Razor scooters hit every store in town. NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys were battling it out for boy band supremacy, and the TV show Survivor debuted for the first time ever. On the hardwood, the NBA was transitioning into a new era of its own. Having closed the page on the 90s, which had been dominated by Michael Jordan, new faces were emerging in the year 2000. Shaq, Kobe, Duncan, Vince Carter, and Allen Iverson. Buckle up as we take a deep dive into this story in the NBA in the year 2000, a year in review. To do a proper year in review for the year 2000, we've got to take it back to 1996. You see, in 96, Lakers general manager Jerry West did the improbable. He signed the best young talent at the time, Shaquille O'Neal, away from Orlando and traded for rookie and high school phenom Kobe Bryant. The expectation was that after some time, these two would bring the Lakers back to championship contention. But after 3 seasons of constantly being bounced out of the playoffs by Western Conference foes, people were beginning to question the talent of both Shaq and Kobe. That's why the biggest acquisition in the 1999 offseason didn't involve a particular player, it involved a coach. Head coach Phil Jackson, who had most recently led Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the Chicago Bulls to 6 NBA championships in the 90s. The hope was that Phil could do the same for Shaq, Kobe, and the Lakers. And as the 2000 season started, things in Los Angeles were looking promising. Shaq was becoming an unstoppable force down low, and Kobe was flourishing into the game's most dynamic two-guard. The Lakers started the season 17-3, and they seemed unbeatable. Meanwhile, in San Antonio, the Spurs, who were fresh off their first championship the season prior, were looking to go back-to-back with the same crew, led by the third-year forward Tim Duncan, who was developing into the league's best power forward and a nightmare on both ends of the floor, averaging 26 points, 12 rebounds, and more than 2 blocks per game. Quietly and steadily, the young Tim Duncan led the Spurs to a 53-29 record for the season. Around the league, there was also significant discussion and debate around who was going to be the next Michael Jordan. First, you had Kobe Bryant, the fourth-year guard who was cementing his claim as the heir apparent. Kobe's pull-up jumper, drives to the basket, and fadeaway jumpers mirrored those of Michael Jordan. You also had Allen Iverson, the fourth-year guard playing for Philadelphia. Although he only stood about 6 feet, Iverson was dazzling fans around the league with his relentless drive, spirit, and fearlessness. You also can't forget Vince Carter. At the time, no one was showcasing their athleticism more than Vince. Half man, half amazing, Air Canada. Speaking of Carter, he put the league on notice at NBA All-Star Weekend hosted in Oakland, California that season. The dunk contest that he participated in is considered the greatest of all time. It featured a small but mighty Steve Francis, a young and very athletic Tracy McGrady, but the main attraction was Vince. Every dunk of his left fans in complete awe, whether it was his underleg point to the sky or his entire forearm hanging from the rim. He captivated the crowd and league unlike anyone has ever done. Post All-Star Weekend, the Lakers are continuing their dominance of the league. They were in the midst of a 19-game winning streak, the 6th longest in NBA history. One of these wins included a rout of their crosstown tenants, the Los Angeles Clippers. Shaq scored a career-high 61 points and hauled in 23 rebounds, completely manhandling the entire Clippers defense. This was the league's first ever 60-20 game since Wilt Chamberlain in the 60s. This was just a small sample size of what Shaq was capable of as the Lakers marched toward the playoffs. This season also marked the first season of many where there was a true conference imbalance. The West would finish with 6 teams with 50 or more wins, while the East only had 3 teams. The West was highlighted by the Lakers, led by the dynamic duo of Shaq and Kobe, and the Portland Trail Blazers, whom veteran and future Hall of Famer Scottie Pippen joined in the offseason to feature alongside a young Rasheed Wallace and veteran star shooting guard Steve Smith. However, despite the crowded West, the Lakers would emerge with the best record in the league, posting an impressive 67 wins. Shaq took home his first and only league MVP, averaging 30 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. He was in the midst of his prime, and this was probably the most dominant he'd ever be. As the playoffs approached, the Lakers were the favorites, but they were still young and inexperienced, and a lot of people were questioning how far they could actually go. You had teams like the Utah Jazz featuring the timeless duo of John Stockton and Karl Malone, who were giving their championship run one last go. You also had the Seattle Supersonics, led by arguably the league's best point guard, Gary Payton, who probably had his best statistical year in 2000, averaging 24 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals per game. Thankfully for the Lakers, as the playoffs began, the Jazz and Sonics saw each other in the first round, taking this series to its 5-game climax. Karl Malone put up huge numbers for Utah, including a 50-point gem in Game 1, pummeling the Seattle interior. Utah would go on to win that series. However, in the second round, Portland was just way too deep for the aging Utah Jazz. Led by the younger and more spry Rasheed Wallace, who averaged 25 points and 10 rebounds in that series, he was too much as a lead scorer, and Portland would defeat Utah comfortably in 5 games. The Western Conference Finals saw the Lakers and Blazers pitted against one another, which is considered one of the best playoff matchups ever. Portland had the depth, with Wallace leading the way along with veterans Scottie Pippen and Steve Smith, as well as a young core that included Damon Stoudemire and Bonzi Wells. Over in LA, the Lakers may not have had the depth, but they had the 2 best players in the series, with Kobe and Shaq leading the way. The series would go back and forth all the way to a Game 7, and somehow the Lakers found themselves down by 15 at the start of the 4th quarter. It seemed like Portland was going to snatch this series from LA, but the Lakers would showcase one of the greatest comebacks in NBA history. Veterans Bryant Shaw and Robert Horry would hit timely threes, Shaq asserted his dominance inside, and Kobe scored key buckets and provided an iconic alley-oop assist to Shaq that lives in the lore of NBA history.
Portland has 3 timeouts left. The Lakers have 2. Bryant to Shaq. Back from the brink of
After their dramatic victory against Portland, the Lakers stamped their ticket to the NBA Finals against the battle-tested Indiana Pacers. Remember, it was these Indiana Pacers that took the Jordan-led Chicago Bulls to a Game 7 in the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals. So these Pacers were for real and were hungry to deliver Indiana its first ever NBA title. Indiana's high-powered offense featured veteran sharpshooter Reggie Miller, as well as a truly underrated performance by the league's most improved player, Jalen Rose. One of the most controversial moments in the series came in Game 2. Rose was guarding Kobe's jumper, and as Kobe came down, Rose snuck his feet underneath Kobe's landing area, leading to a devastating sprained ankle that would take Kobe out for the rest of Game 2 and all of Game 3. After 3 games, LA would lead 2-1, heading into a hotly contested Game 4. This game saw not only Kobe's return to action from his sprained ankle, but this game also featured his true coming out party as the league's best and future star. After seeing Shaq foul out in Game 4, Kobe took the game over in the 4th and overtime to secure the pivotal win for LA. This game was the true turning point in the series. In addition to Kobe's heroics, the entire series saw Shaq dominate everyone in his way. Whether it was Rick Smits, Dale Davis, or Jeff Foster, no one was able to handle the MVP inside. He averaged a whopping 38 points and 17 rebounds, probably the most dominant NBA Finals performance ever. And more importantly than that, Shaq was able to secure his first NBA title, his first Finals MVP, and the Lakers' first championship since 1988. When we compare the greatest players and legacies in NBA history, Shaq is rarely mentioned, but never forgotten. And it is because of the 2000 season that we cannot ignore Shaq. He was the most dominant player ever, and unfortunately for the league, this was just the beginning.